Welcome everyone to today's webinar, Developing a Love for Nature, Experiencing Outdoor Time in Singapore's Increasingly Variable Weather. Good evening. My name is Ying Shan and I'm a parent who's concerned about the impact of the climate crisis on my son. I'll be moderating today's webinar. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be available for viewing afterwards. This webinar is the first of a series of 5 monthly webinars organized by Climate Conversations in collaboration with Parents for Climate Action. The webinar topics are related to how we as parents can help our children navigate the climate crisis. Please stay in touch if you are interested for updates on future webinars and events. Okay, so today's topic was conceived because experts have said that to build climate resilience in children, it is important to inculcate in them a love for nature when they are young. But in Singapore, and also no thanks to climate change, the weather is increasingly either very hot and humid or rainy and wet, and also increasingly very variable and extreme. So this presents very practical logistical problems for parents. How then can we help our children to develop a love for nature? Today we have two speakers who will provide us with some tips and strategies. First, we will have Sabrina from 100 Pups. Sabrina is the co-founder of the Forest School, 100 Pups. She was a primary school educator for 10 years and desires to share with parents and children the beauty of a child-led approach in nature. Then we'll have Natalie. Uh, she is a mother of two, and she has found some creative ways to integrate outdoor time with fitness, language development, and community building goals. She is also the Deputy Director of the Education Branch at Singapore Botanic Gardens. So if you have any questions, audience, you can ask in the chat and we'll try to address them during the Q&A session after the speakers' presentations. Now, without further ado, Sabrina, over to you.
Hi, Yingshan.
Hello, Sabrina.
Hi. Okay. Hi, good evening, everyone. So today's topic is developing a love for nature in times of a climate crisis. I'm a forest school practitioner with 100 Paths. We're fairly new. We started sometime this year. And I'll share a little bit more about what forest school does. So we're very pro nature, as obviously you can tell by the name forest school. I like to share a quote, and this is my favorite part from Richard Louv, Last Child in the Woods. If we are going to save environmentalism and the environment, we must also save an endangered indicator species, the child in nature. Living in Singapore, it's hard to find green spaces, and that's kind of like an endangered species, child in nature. Okay, so what is forest school like? Forest school is about learning in the outdoors. It doesn't necessarily have to be about the outdoors, but because we want children to be comfortable in the outdoors, we have our sessions mainly outdoors. And the experiences are about play. They get to play outdoors as much as possible, and they are child-led as far as possible. It's usually a sustained, regular experience. Most of the children come just once a week, but in our very packed schedule for children these days, that's really good, very good for their social and emotional well-being. They attend in all weathers and they wear appropriate clothing. Okay. So a question might come out: how do we bring the children outdoors despite the weather and the climate change? We always recommend that the children be dressed appropriately. That means they come in breathable clothes, something where the children won't feel too hot in our weather. And because they'll be doing a lot of movement and running and could be climbing or wading in streams, we encourage having flexible footwear because having just breathable clothes and even clothes that you can move in and footwear that's comfortable to that support movement helps them, feel at home in nature where they can just like roll about in the grass or explore different parts of the forest comfortably. Of course, bringing and carrying a water bottle. We would recommend having a bit of electrolytes in the water. Even a little bit of lemon juice would be great to keep yourself hydrated. Um, so the children can get their own water breaks in time whenever they feel thirsty. And we always encourage the children to listen to their own bodies if they feel thirsty or any after playing and lots of perspiration, um, grab a water bottle they can drink and hydrate themselves. Next one, we bring healthy snacks. So I don't know, snacks like nuts and seeds. To This provides energy. After being outdoors, playing, running, climbing. Children do tend to get a bit hungry. So whenever they feel like they need to snack on something, there's always like a packet of healthy snacks packed in their bags, and this gives them ample energy when they need to run, play outdoors. Another good tip when we are outdoors, especially in the forest, we look for shaded areas. And these shaded areas can be under trees. We're blessed in Singapore to have great big trees, and it's great to roll out a mat and have quiet time or snacks or a drink um, under the shade of trees. And it keeps you cool. We've had a session where one of the children noticed a big tree and he was feeling really hot. So he did say that, oh, I need to go under a tree because it's like natural aircon. So you stand under a tree and you get natural air condition under a shaded tree. Okay. If it's you find it difficult like to go outdoors, um, we always encourage parents to start simple, do something that you're comfortable with. I can share more later in the conversation. Um, and like with Singapore's weather, you have the sun, and then sometimes drastically you have like heavy rains. In forest school, we always prepare for weather, all types of weather. So in Singapore, um, when there's rain, we encourage the children to have packed raincoats in their bags. So if anytime there's heavy rains, the children immediately you will see them taking out their raincoats from their backpacks and they just put it on. And then we appreciate the weather as it is, and will that makes a good invitation for play, just playing in the rain. And this, despite being wet and all, that's actually great fun. Just playing, getting yourself wet and in puddles and mud. Yeah. And it also helps children build resilience with the change in weather. So because they're exposed to such weather changes once a week, they spend enough time outdoors, it builds their resilience to appreciate these changes in weather. Whether it could be sunny or rainy, it doesn't phase them. And there's a very good quote that we always have in forest school, that there's no such thing as bad weather, only inappropriate clothing. So when it's raining, let's say before the session, children come prepared. They come in their raincoats and their rain boots, and they're all ready to play in puddles and enjoy the rain. Okay, and how do we do our explorations in nature? And this is usually child led. We follow the children's lead. So they take the lead in exploring and engaging with the natural world. So our role is actually very minimal. We just provide that safe space for them to explore. Minimal adult intervention is actually very important for them to love being in the outdoors. Um, when they have the freedom to explore, they explore at their own pace. So they can wander, they can climb, they can dig, or even simply just sitting and observing. Whatever they choose to, that is their freedom of exploration. Um, we provide that safe space. That's this time is their unstructured time, so we don't have a structured time where we have this activity at this time and this activity at another time. So again, the freedom to explore in unstructured time is important in forest school. They get to decide how they want to spend their time outdoors, and this promotes lots of independence and self-directed learning. um yeah, and in our forest school, you would see the children picking up like sticks, and they use it as walking sticks, and this also provides an opportunity for open-ended play. Rocks, sticks, leaves, water, and that's just like their first point of contact to nature. They can do so many things with sticks and leaves and water. Their imagination really goes, um, and creativity really shows in during the session, because it's very open ended. Um, and again, like I said, because it's very self directed, they can have quiet reflection. They can just stare at stare out into nature if they want to feel, they feel like they need a little bit more of a relaxed time. They can have that quiet reflection if they want to. We also have a safe space for risky play, within safe boundaries. Like if they need to balance on logs, they wade through streams. This risky play, we believe, is really important for the children's development, and it promotes a lot of um, physical development and risk assessment skills on their own. So they would know how to decide on their own whether or not something is dangerous for them. Okay. Um, and of course, following your interests. Of course, at the end of the session, whenever we pack and leave the forest school site, we leave no trace. We'll pack up everything, we put everything back into our bags. Whatever snacks that they had, we put it into the bin, or we put it in our bags and take it with us. So we leave no trace behind, and of course, we don't damage any part of nature. And with everything that forest school comes, there's there's the benefits of playing in nature. So with being in the outdoors, you're exposed to the sun. You get vitamin D. This builds immunity. And with sunlight exposure, when children are outdoors most of the time, when their eyes are observing things at a far distance, and the movement of the eyes and tracking of objects in the far distance with natural sunlight, it actually helps with their eyesight. It doesn't, you don't have to wear glasses. um, and being in nature also builds that nature connectedness. Like in forest school, the children come to our sessions once a week, and with the regular sessions, we've seen how the children build nature connectedness. So this keeps their sense of wonder with nature like intact. And because they're always exposed to the loose materials in nature, it their creativity and imagination builds. um, Even with just loose parts, they can make things with stick play. They can do lots of things with water. Yeah, it's really actually a blessing to be able to witness their play. And of course, being in surrounded by the trees and the greenery, and listening to the birds, being in the shaded part of the forest, it really helps with mental restoration. So even as an adult, when I'm sitting under a tree and watching the children, providing that safe space, it can be very calming for the mind. So I'm pretty sure it does wonders for the children's mental restoration. When they're out playing in the nature, building social and nature connectedness, it helps their development holistically. And with that, that's all I have for today. I hope you get like a bit of an idea of what we do in forest school. If you have any questions, you can leave it in the comments. And I think I'll pass the time back to Yingshan.
Thank you, Sabrina. Since we still have a bit of time before Nat comes in, we have a question from Singing. So she is asking that how quickly do the children in the forest school feel comfortable in nature?
Uh, Okay, so it really depends, and we don't force it upon them because in forest school we really encourage that they go on their own time and on their own terms. So just by going to the forest, entering the forest, and if we provide that safe space, they may be just observing what their friends are doing or watching quietly, and then eventually they join in with the rest of the group of friends. So there's no specific time. It really depends on the child, but we don't rush anything and we don't force anything upon them. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Um, Natalie, I understand you have a question for Sabrina.
Yeah. Um, Thanks for your presentation. It was interesting to see like the pictures and what you guys do at 100 Past. Um, I was wondering because at NParks we've also like started to trial some of these programs. How I feel like there's a little bit of a conundrum between child-led learning and then there are things that the children don't know exist, like building or making things or trying things out with string and other kind of equipment. How do you manage that such that it's not completely child led? Because children sometimes don't know what they don't know, and how do you introduce something new?
Okay, so we may lay out the materials, like for example, string or even sticks, and then sometimes we model them, but we don't have to specifically like say we teach them, hi, come over and we model. Like say if I'm weaving string on craft like sticks on with sticks, and we just have to sit there and model it. The children, it's sort of like an self invitation, so the children will come over and, oh, what are you doing? And then they see me weaving, and then they too pick it up, and then
Mhm.
they try it on their own as well. So modeling a certain craft or anything, even with rocks and leaves, whatever we want, like whatever um, we have on hand, if we just show it to the children, we model it, the children naturally come over. And if they don't want to, I mean, they don't want to take up the the activity or the craft, it's fine. Yeah, maybe they're not ready or they wish to explore something else which they feel like their body wants to explore. Maybe they want to instead play with their friends, and that's fine too. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I think I also, I mean, if there's a little bit of time, I would like to answer Xing Ying's question. Um, so what I find is when children are not, we are in a city in Singapore and we grow up in quite a sterile environment. We will. It's totally possible to exist without needing to grow your own food or harvesting your own water or building your own house. Like it's totally possible, and um, and yeah, when you introduce children into like this brand new world, I think it also has to be done in phases, with this understanding and consideration in mind. Because if you compare it to a child who will build his own house or her own house and will grow her own food and collect her own water, they are very used to seeing um, this type of landscape, right? They already have these models that Sabrina mentioned. They see people cutting wood, They see people carrying water. They learn these skills through observation through their lives. And uh, yeah, I think one of the big gaps in our maybe our generation, since we grew up in the city, is that we don't really have these models to follow. And if we see them, it's like on an exotic holiday. So I think how we introduce children could be phased, and it could be done in a gentle way. And every child is different. You know, some children, even if they're not exposed to nature, you drop them off in a park and boom, 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 like they're off. You don't have to like guide them, or like, they are not afraid of the sand, they're not afraid of the grass, they are barefoot. But other children would be like, whoa, like this is too much for me. Like, what is this green stuff? And like, I don't like this texture. Like, everything is so hot and so dirty, and I'm so sweaty. So I think you have to look at the child as well, um, and I think not be, say if they're responding quite adversely, um, you can try something else. If they don't like the beach, you can try the park. If they don't like the park, you can try the stream. If they don't, there are different alternatives, and children are flexible. And I think you don't have to take their reaction the first time you see it as a fixed reaction, like like, oh, my child doesn't like the beach, because I have two children myself, and I find that as they grow, even though for my first child, I really like, she grew up in the Botanic Gardens. Uh, I would, yeah, literally, she grew up in the Botanic Gardens, but she's not as uh, instinctive compared to my son, who didn't even grow up in the gardens. She would be afraid of like sand when we go to the beach, or like she just needed more time to get used to things. And once she became afraid of the sand, then 5 months later, she was fine playing in the water. So I think you have to just do it slowly. Don't push them if they don't want to do it. Find something alternative. They want to sit on the mat at the beach and play with their toys for that 2 hours you're at the beach. So be it. Yeah, I think just have to take things with this understanding, and like just go with their pace.
Yeah, that's exactly what we always try to inculcate. Is like they are allowed to go at their pace. That's how they build their learning and love of the space.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's crazy, right? Before I had kids, I didn't know how different they could be. And I thought like everything is socialized, like, oh, if you expose the child, they will be fine, But then I think like, now that I have a slightly more sensitive child, I'm like, oh yeah, maybe it's not socialized. And some of it is just like genetic. And yeah, there are many, many factors that come into play.
Mm. Yeah, you're so right, Natalie. We see so many different types of children in our forest school.
Okay, Nat. Now that you mentioned the child, that yeah, your child, would you like to share your tips on how you have tried to introduce her to nature and the outdoors?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm from Parks, and I'm from the Singapore Botanic Gardens education team. I'm also a mother of two, and I think I merged these two hats, and I come to this sharing with that in mind. So my first slide is developing a love for nature. So I think the first thing in Singapore, right, that I would really like to encourage is for people to just go outdoors anywhere. It doesn't have to be like, if you think of nature, it doesn't have to be the most extreme end. You don't have to go to the nature reserves, or like to MacRitchie Reservoir, or to Botanic Gardens. You can go anywhere. If your child likes water, find some place with water. If your child likes sand, you can go to the beach. If the beach is too far away, you can go to the stadium. Like in the picture on the left, they have these long jump pits that sometimes people don't use where I stay, and we just bring some sand toys and get her to play. So I think just the first step is just going outdoors, even downstairs to your playground, a space where you can go consistently, where your child can observe what is around them slowly. It doesn't have to be the biggest thing. So start simply is my encouragement for parents who who are not sure where to begin. So let me give you an example of starting very close to your house. So the three pictures you see are of a tree branch, and this is taken below my house. So some horticultural workers around there were like cutting off a tree that had rotted away, and then I was like, hey, can we borrow a branch for a little while? So we carried it over, and the kids that were playing with my kids were getting very excited, and they were like, oh, a branch, and, like, it was amazing. A branch could stimulate so much excitement. And then they started to sit on it, touch it, and then they really observed it quite closely. I drew their attention to the lichen, and then they spotted something. I don't know if you see it in the leftmost photograph, but if you do, it's a few black dots, and the few black dots are actually ladybugs or ladybirds, and I didn't even notice this, so it was like an extra surprise for me. And we were talking about why they were located in that little indentation in the branch. Some speculation about like shade and that they were family. And then the kids were like, oh, a family. And then they started to gather sticks and like they were like, oh, the family's now in the sun. So they poked the sticks in the ground, they grabbed some stuff around, and they built a shelter for these ladybirds. And I was like, oh, so nice. And then they started going to the Izora bush at the back, if you see in the middle photo, and they started to pull all these like flowers out, and they were like, I'm gonna decorate the home. And then after like a little while, I got a bit concerned because I did the tree wouldn't die, but like I thought like, we can incorporate some environmental messaging in. So I shared with them like, oh yeah, what bees and butterflies drink honey from these flowers, and we should be considerate, right? We should leave something for everyone. And so through these like little simple interactions, I think it's possible for them to get a feel of nature. When they go around picking up sticks or like picking up these like different leaves to build their shelter, they actually observe, what's around them, and they take note. And when they first start to take note, and if you go to this place repeatedly, they'll see the changes in the environment. So they'll start to notice that, hey, suddenly there's flowers in the ground in July. And then later on, there are seed pods that have fallen from the same tree, and they'll start to understand, not super intellectually, but they'll just observe and they'll have an understanding that this is the life cycle, and the adult doesn't just stand back and watch. The adult can facilitate and give narrative to what they're observing as well. So anyway, that's just me. Like, start simply. Don't have to go anywhere fancy. Even starting just close to your house and spending time with your kids and the neighbors and building that community, that's pretty important. Okay, the next few pictures, I'm gonna just take you to the park. Say you want to go to the park. I think there were a few questions before we started this about what to bring, what to do. So I just like gathered some various ideas. Okay, so yeah, pencil and paper for moments where they want to draw and record. If they want to collect like flowers and leaves from this park or whatever, you can bring little bags or little things for them to collect, or even put like a bracelet upside down and they can stick it on their hand. You can be very creative. You can also bring string, because sometimes they like to tie things together. I do think that you could give them ideas. You can model for them, or you can ask them, would you like to try this? And most of the time they'll say yes, and they'll just go with it. During their snack time, sometimes you might like to bring a book, or you might like to just chill out, and then a scissors also to cut things or to just examine things that you find on the park floor. I find that for the younger kids, sometimes you might want to consider bringing a peeler. So you get a branch and then you're able to even like just peel off the bark and peel the layers off and see what's inside. So that could be something you want to consider. And follow the kids' interests. If they like soft toys, maybe you want to bring a couple of soft toys for them to just play and during their break time and just get used to the space. There's many ways for kids to be in nature, and there's many schools of thought. Something you should just leave them alone, something you can stimulate their interest. I feel like for me personally, I'm a bit of a mix. I like to see what the interest is, and then like my son loves dinosaurs, so we bring along a couple of tiny figurines, and like when we go to the evolution garden in the Botanic Gardens, where there are these cave-like structures, we just put them out on the ground when we're having a snack, and they'll like, they'll naturally start playing. And when one child plays, the other will. And talking about children, I think it's quite nice to go in a community as a group, and to have, instead of like one-off meetings, to try and organize something weekly over a period of time. And why this is so is because I find it helps, the memories they create repeatedly in the same area somehow gets stored into their permanent hard drives much better, and they're able to make connections, and not just with the place but with their friends, and get into conflict with their friends, and get into other difficult situations that as a parent, when your child is in school most of the day, sometimes it's nice to be able to talk them through and guide them through some difficult moments. So yeah, okay, talking too much. What to pack. Somebody asks what they should bring when they have a pretty young child. I think there was a really funny icon that's covered by Climate Conversations logo, but there's a stork and a person carrying their baby. So bring yourself, bring your baby. Thanks. And your stroller. I mean, I think strollers are pretty, they are just like your second home. You just dump everything inside, and bring what is comfortable for you. Sometimes your baby doesn't like to be in a carrier, then you have to walk with them, or you have to carry them. It is how it is, even if you go to an air-conditioned airport or supermarket. Bring a change of clothes, a hat, raincoat, and be prepared for many different kinds of weather. I would say I really like these pictures of kids in Sweden and Denmark, like it's snowing or it's raining, and they're wearing these like raincoats and like umbrellas. But I must say that after sending my kid to preschool and like noticing how often they fall sick, I personally tend to err on the safe side. So I let them play in the rain when we have raincoats, and when the weather has been quite warm and I know that their body is warm enough to play in the rain, especially for my daughter. So I think it really depends on your child and your understanding of their health, because my daughter tends to fall more sick than my son, for example. So I think just do what you're comfortable with, and slowly you'll find what is right for you and your family. Bring snacks, and then plasters or whatever for safety reasons. I think Sabrina touched on this quite nicely. I won't go into it but too deeply, but I think you don't have to have a grand plan, or you don't have to have a fixed idea. Like some people go to the park. I used to do that, and they go like, we're going to go picnic, and then we're going to go to this specific place. But when you bring children, it's very dynamic. The plans are not usually fixed. If they want to run somewhere to a pavilion up there, or like just expand their energy, I'm very happy for them to do so. So I usually go with the flow of the kids for the first third, and then we usually take a break. But anyway, we just see what they want to do, and it's quite nice that sometimes they get to choose, right? And I think when they are out in nature, they should get to choose. Yeah, yeah, a lot of, I think Singapore kids have a pretty structured life, and it's it builds character, it builds many things that Sabrina has mentioned in her slides. Okay, yeah, I'll skip this. But I just want to share a little bit about our time in nature and how we had gone about interacting with the kids. So we generally just allow them to walk and choose. When we come to a path, they get to choose which way to go as long as it's not dangerous, you know. And there were 2 kids in the group who were especially interested in monitor lizards. And they spotted one on the tree. Like, I didn't even see it, but they were just super like sharp-eyed, and they spotted one climbing up a tree. So we went through the path and off onto the grass to look at this huge papa monitor lizard, as they call it. On the tree, we discussed like where its habitat was, and then we discovered there were 2 more beside us, digging the leaf litter, and we spent like just 10 to 15 minutes, I don't know how long there, just like watching them, you know, in their habitat, just quietly with the kids. And sometimes, you know, we would just probe and ask a little bit of questions here and there, just to stimulate thought and interest, but most of the time just silently observing. And it was a really good experience. And we followed up with this at home, because they kept talking about monitor lizards, by showing them some videos and showing them how they ate. And yeah, I think there's a fascination with monitor lizards, especially for kids who like dinosaurs, because they look quite like dinosaurs. Oh, Pamela said, my son loves it now. He likes to ask me what the names of the plants or trees are. I always have to use Google Lens to help me. Yeah. I think sometimes it's okay if you don't know, or if it's not right, and you can always write into NParks to ask what the plants are if you don't know. We have a special plant identification unit, and they and they specialize in identifying things for you. So they can identify things especially effectively if you have the flower and the leaves and maybe the overall structure. So you can send in a couple of shots. Yeah. Yes, is there a book that the Botanic Gardens has published that I can look out for? Yes, we have quite a number of books. For adults like us, I think we have the 1001 Plants. And then there are also some of these guides. Later on, I think I have it. Hi. So this is not published by the Botanic Gardens, but you see the 4th picture from the right. Kids are looking at some kind of guide. So there are these guides that fold out like an accordion, and you can, they identify lots of local birds. There's some about butterflies. There's some about plants, if I'm not wrong, too. And you can find them in our garden shop as well. So these are quite helpful, and kids, like, when they spot a bird, they love to look and try to see and match the colors. So it's pretty good for self-led learning too. Yeah, some other pictures, the little dinosaur figurines and other animals and birds that I was talking about. This is in the Botanic Gardens Evolution Garden. You can see them playing after their lunch break. And then I think bringing along a magnifying glass. Sometimes they don't know how to use it, and they also destroy it. But they enjoy just holding something and trying to explore and see what it is. Over here, they're examining, I think, a tree ferns crozier with one of our staff. I do think it's quite important to, when their interest is piqued, to share with them lots of different things and get them to touch it gently and just ask questions. So quite inquiry-based learning style as well. So I think a combination of these quite effective for the kids. They seem very happy and engaged. And then we also try to introduce new elements every session. So most of the time they're running about, but there will always be something new, like, our horticulture workers were pruning a syzygium tree next to our building, where we wait for the kids when they come and gather, and they just used it to like stack and build things and build a den. So after they put leaves on the top of all of these netting, they just like stayed underneath like very happily and had their snacks. Yeah. And yeah, dress appropriately for any weather, and know your kid before. Yeah, and don't get them sick. It's not fun looking after a sick kid, but also don't prevent them from playing in the rain. Just get to know your child and their physical condition. Okay, I think I'm coming to the last slides. Forest School, I think, is quite big on free play, but there's also, I think, programs and activities, I think, that are nice to organize with the materials that your child collects. This is something we did with some of the kids, and then of course we made it look a bit nicer for the photo. So classification of big and small. This is if they're pretty young. Making, like cute art out of these loose parts, and sticking leaves and labeling what they are. So I think for teachers, what you can do with the material that your kids collect from a little walk around the school compound or the areas, so that you can do things like this as well. And then I just want to show you last thing, creations of kids. So we set up a booth. This was a free program at the Jacob Ballas Children's Garden, and we asked them to find like different things that they like from the park floor, and make something, anything out of it. It could spell your name, they could make the sun, they could do whatever they wanted. And if they showed us a picture of what they made, they could get something small. So these are some things that they made. And I mean, I thought it was quite special. Like this little kid, like just imagining them walking on the ground, like eyes on the lookout for something that they found special, and evaluating what they think is nice, picking it up, and then trying to make something. And then you're like, I need more of this. And they'll go back to collect a little bit more, pinch the leaves so that the feelers come out. Like this is such, I mean, it's not the bestseller work of art, but it's so nice to think about what goes on in their mind and imagine. What goes through their mind when they're making these things. These are some others. I think some are made with the help of their parents. And yeah, we asked them what it is. So there's like a butterfly. Some like to play with sand. There's like, I think the bottom middle one is like some zombie land. And then this fish is pretty intricate. It's made with like palm frond, I think. And some leaves and a saga seed for the eye. It was pretty cute. Is that the last one? Oh, I thought I had another slide, but never mind. This is my last this is my last slide, and I hope you've enjoyed it. I think my main point, just go out there, even to a very nearby place. If your child doesn't know what to do, because sometimes they don't know what to do, I think you can guide them along, and consider that we are in Singapore. Not many people are there to model for your child, so you got to model for them. Can encourage them to pick up something they like from the forest floor, from the playground surroundings, and then you start to make something, make a face, or make the sun, and they will watch what you do, because every child I've tried it on, they're like, what are you doing? What are you making? They'll come up to you, and from there, you can try different things, and whatever they like, they'll come back to. They won't find it disgusting to touch leaves, or like very unnatural to be in nature. So I think ultimately we want to raise people who are caring and maybe not concerned, but like just caring and with a love for the environment. And I think it starts with just having with each child having a positive experience in the in their surroundings, just a positive experience in nature, and that small little seed, I think, can grow to something bigger, and maybe they'll find like a little community, or maybe they won't, but whatever it is, I think these small little experiences will help to shape them and their view of the environment. And ultimately, I think it will influence their environmental stewardship. Yeah. Oh, sorry, somebody asked a question. I missed that sharing whether it was NParks or Botanic Gardens. It's NParks that has a plant identification unit, but Botanic Gardens is a part of the National Parks Board. So we are one of the gardens in NParks. And but you can write into the generic email of NParks with a picture. Yeah. Or you can go to Flora and Fauna Web, which is the website that you found. So if you know the name of the plant, sometimes plants have a label, right? And you can take a picture of it, type it in, and you can find, the various fun facts about the plant. Sometimes they tell you what the users were, where it's from, how it was used medicinally, but it's not a recommendation for you to use it medicinally that way, because people might have processed it differently. But yeah, you do use the Flora Fauna Web. You can use it for both plants and animals. Maybe can ask. Yeah. Okay. I think that is it. If there are any other questions, or like Sabrina, if Sabrina wants to come back too, I miss her. we can have a sharing or like a discussion.
Thank you so much, Nat, and Sabrina also. I think if there's one key message that I got out of this sharing is that we as parents, we need to take the lead, and we also have the job to educate ourselves so that we can lead our children. And hence some of the questions that one of our audience members asked is, what kind of resources can parents refer to? So we heard from that. Sabrina, do you have any suggestions on resources that we could refer to as parents?
There's lots of books surrounding nature. I mean, like even when I just walk into the botanic garden shop, like there's a whole array of like plant books inside, and lots of great children books in there. Yeah, even bookstores have even a nature section nowadays. There's lots of like even books on references of Singapore's birds and trees. So I always find that like a great reference point. Yeah.
Yeah, and the library too.
Oh
Like,
yes. How can I forget the library?
free books.
And so I'm just conscious of the time. It's 7:50 now, but I think we would be happy to go over time by about 5 to 10 minutes, if that's okay with you both as speakers.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm sure the audience would love to hear more from you too. One of my other questions, which I'm sure is also on the top of many Kiasu parents' minds. I am also a Kiasu parent. So if our kids go out into the rain and they get wet, how do you prevent them from getting sick? Do you strategically plan your outing such that it's near a shower area where they can shower down and change to a new set of clothes?
Oh,
Sabrina, you go first.
I mean, like, from our experience, as long as they're well hydrated, and the parents always usually pack a change of clothes in a Ziploc bag and put it into their backpacks. So when they come and fetch them, right, they'll just change out into dry clothes so they don't feel so wet and cold, and they don't get like really cold. So any nearby like toilets or spaces where it's enclosed, they change their kids and even diapers to dry ones. Yeah. So and actually, yeah, they have all been okay as long as they are well hydrated and they have time like outdoors. Breathing in like the trees, the air from the trees, it really builds their immunity, and it's just fantastic to see them um like being out in nature builds their immunity. So we can just like change them, no problem, once they feel cold or anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I think just make sure they're warm. Don't let them go into the air conditioned room like right after that, and let them keep moving lah. And then they'll stay warm. Yeah, I also I think I mentioned I'm quite strategic about when I let my daughter play in the rain. If I hear her sneezing like a few times, and then she's like, "Mama, can I go down and like splash in the puddles in the rain?" I'm like, no, no, like I'm not going to let you do this, and then have to look after you for the next 10 days. But if I know she's robust, she's healthy, like things are going well, she's warm, I think like after the afternoon, especially, I prefer them to play in the rain in the afternoon, and not in the morning when it's like cooler and breezier, because I just know her body type. If it was my son, it might be a different thing. Not because he's a boy, but I just know that health wise, he's a bit more robust. Yeah. If my son was a daughter, I would say the same thing.
Cool. Thank you so much for that. What about mosquitoes? Are insect repellents sufficient?
um well, we always encourage the to spray with insect repellent, but there's a reason why in forest school we also encourage the children to wear long sleeves, tops and pants, because that gives another layer of barrier for the mosquitoes not to enter. Yeah, and it also protects their skin. When they are sometimes when they walk past plants and they're walking in bushes, and right, it will like prevent scratches on their skin. So it's like a two in one thing. They have there's long sleeves, protect against mosquitoes and grazes from plants. And then parents would spray insect repellent over the sleeves. So that works so far. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it doesn't really prevent it, like maybe minimally. But yeah, just use insect repellent, and I think if you're in the park, then long sleeves. Sometimes you're on the beach and there are a lot of sand flies. I'm not very sure how to like prevent that. But I do see that there are sandfly like peak seasons, and like sometimes when I go to the beach, there are hardly any sandflies. So I think there is a season where there's just a lot of them, and it's a bit unavoidable. Yeah.
So there's a question over here. Do you have any recommended nature reserves or walking paths? And what do you think is a good age to start exposing children to nature?
Yeah, maybe I can take the recommended ones, and I'm sure Sabrina has some too. But I have a huge list actually in front of me, of new parks, including inclusive playgrounds, therapeutic gardens, and nature play gardens that NParks has been rolling out since 2018. Um, and if you live in the West, Jurong Lake Gardens has a really great nature play area, a new one with water, and like I think what they've been trying to do more with the nature play areas is try to incorporate more natural looking and natural material. So a lot more wood, a lot more free play elements that are like stones um, or sticks or various things like that, which uh, which are not only plastic. And then there's Admiralty Park, there's Marsiling Park, there's Serangoon Linear Park if you live in the north. There's also Coney Island Park. If you live in the east, I think there's a lot of options for you. So East Coast Park has quite a number of new nature play areas also, including Tampines Eco Green. There's also like Bedok Reservoir Park. These are more natural open areas. If you live in the central, there's Bishan Ang Mo Kio Park, Jacob Ballas Children's Garden. There's, if you live in the south, Hort Park, Teluk Blangah, Tiong Bahru. Yeah, I think there are a lot. And Singapore itself has over 200 parks. So, yeah, they might not be like specifically developed for nature play, but surely you can find something there.
Yeah, Nat has covered like a lot of like the good parks. Children can go out as young as, I don't know, in their mommy's womb. It's a bit of sunshine, a bit of sunshine, fresh air. It's always good to have sunshine and fresh air out when you go for walks. And children, even as little as babies, they can benefit from being outdoors so much. So no particular age, any age is good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I think as they grow up, their kind of developmental needs change a bit. Like when they're younger, I think what we both have described is kind of for a pretty young age group or the younger range, maybe until like 9 or 8. And then as they grow up, I feel like they want to do more complex things, or they can do more complex things, like building structures or using tools. Yeah. So I think we can slowly incorporate these. Of course, it cannot just be incorporated and like introduced to a child and child is age 10. Like, okay, here you go. It has to be done like systematically and in a well thought out manner. In your time as nature educators, have you noticed whether parents who bring their children to experience nature are already people who are very connected to nature? Have you tried anything to, I guess, get the buy-in of parents who have not prioritized nature? Yeah, I mean, I like this question. I do think that people who come for our programs for sure are already sold. I mean, okay, we have tried things and we have used our Garden City Fund to fund some programs so that they are free. So we have free storytelling sessions, we have drama and arts, we have like, we had some night programs to look out for like things. So we tried to cater for different audiences. We also have poetry competitions and like writing poetry in the garden. And we have a variety of programs. So that's what we have done. But I just came back from London on a study trip. And one thing that the gardens I found really interesting, so they don't work like our gardens. They're big garden institutes like Kew Gardens. You need to pay to go in, and it's not cheap. And like an Eden Project, also another famous garden. So what they do to get revenue for the garden and to also attract like an audience who would definitely not step into the garden is they organize concerts in the garden. So they had like Guns N' Roses concert when we were in Hyde Park. It's like bam, 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 bam. And all these people who I think wouldn't otherwise have like gone to Hyde Park on a Tuesday, at 5, were there. So that was one way that Gardens Overseas have tried to do this. In the Botanic Gardens, we also do organize a lot of concerts and events. So hopefully through that, they would come into the gardens, pass by the main lobby, see our programs or talks or activities or free tours advertised on the screen and join us as well. Sorry, I have like, I can talk like endlessly about this, but we also do assembly talks, which are free, and preschool programs to introduce the fascinating creatures of the Botanic Gardens to the little ones in an age-appropriate level. So we do reach out to various schools and try to bring them in this way as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I just add even for 100 paths, even if let's say parents are not comfortable, we do have like parent accompanied sessions. So you will see the parents bringing, and then we again provide that safe space. We don't judge or anything. So that the parents gradually feel at ease with their child, and the child will be in their arms, and then eventually they will let go of the child, and the child will toddle on its own, on his or her own, and it's very comforting to watch. So it's not only just the child that gets comfortable in nature, the parent as well, when they see their own child, exploring. So it helps bring comfort, a little bit of comfort to the parents. And even if they're not comfortable, some parents just didn't drop them off with us. So we then bring the children, and then that's when they get their nature time. The children get their nature time. Yeah.
Okay, we have another question by Pamela. When you see animals that we think are dangerous, like reptiles, what do you do? And I also have a question to add to that is, how would you instill in children a love for animals? Would you bring them to the zoo, or Nat talked about observing the monitor lizard and observing birds. Do you have any other suggestions? Thank you.
Sabrina, you can go first if you want.
Okay. We generally have any session, we start off with like the forest code rules. So one of the rules is that we have to keep ourselves safe, and we have to keep our friends safe. So if we see anything like perceived as dangerous, like animals or reptiles, the children know that they need to keep a safe distance. They can watch the animals from like a good arm's length or two, but we don't encourage them to go up and like pet it, or pet a snake, or pet a monitor lizard. And if we are in the monitor lizard's way, we get out of their way. So then we give them, the animals, that safe space, to go about doing their own. Maybe we were in their way, so we needed to make way for the monitor lizard to walk past. And so far, the snakes and reptiles that we have encountered, they are generally like shy. They will like slither away, or they will walk out of the way. When we said that they have to keep a safe distance, right? So when we see a snake, obviously we are not going to go towards the snake. We tell the children that loud sounds also scares snakes away, so they can stamp their feet to sort of like detour the snake. So the snakes get scared, and they just like go into the bushes. And of course we will step back. That's what we do when we have our rules in forest school. That's what we do with the children.
Yeah, I think that Pamela, you're not the only one. I walked past when one of the areas in the gardens was opening. I walked past, and then like I didn't know there was a snake beside me, and I saw it and I screamed, like the most high pitched scream ever. And I mean, it was just shock, right? Like you don't see these things beside you, crawling about you, these every day. I was just, but I totally knew it was not poisonous. A whip snake, their mouths are very tiny, and like they usually are very, very shy too. So that's for that particular species. But if you do see a snake, I agree. Yeah, just do the snake stamp, or like don't go too close. I think some people are, I think what's a little bit more dangerous are the cute animals of the garden that people like to go very close towards and like try to feed. And don't feed animals in the garden. They can find their own food. Don't feed the swans. They get stomach ache from your bread. Don't feed
otters.
Yes, don't touch the otters. Like they will bite you if they are pregnant, for sure, right? If somebody tries to take your baby away, it's not a common sense thing to do. So don't do that. And animals, they can find their own food, and their food that they find is much healthier than the ones you're going to give them. So just leave them be, observe them from 3 meters away, and just enjoy them. If you interact with them, you change their behavior a bit. If you observe them from a distance, you get to see how they do and how they behave and how they leave their scent on the ground if they're otters. Yeah. Sorry, I think Ingshan, you had one more question was that you asked and I forgot what it was. What was it?
I mean, related to bringing, observing and respecting animals, would you recommend bringing kids to the zoo or even like, to farm holidays where they feed animals?
Yeah, I not against. Um, I mean, I think many people in Singapore, they don't have the opportunity to like travel to so many countries to see all these things, and that is one of the real advantages of having a zoo. I mean, there are many issues surrounding these things, but many people have also developed a real love for these animals from visiting zoos. So it's a bit of a conundrum. But I would say overall, I think the zoo has created quite a big impact, like a big positive environmental impact on children because animals are so charismatic. Um, and I mean, plants are very interesting too, but you need a different lens to look at them to really, if you're a child, you prefer something that moves, that has big eyes, that has, claws or whatever you would prefer. They are just much more charismatic. So I do think there is a value to that. Um, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Sabrina and Nat. I have one last question, which I think is quite appropriate in closing our webinar. So, um, my son, we're quite liberal in terms of letting him touch sticks and getting dirty, and touching leaves and things like that. But when he does, it's a bit destructive. He would say build a structure out of sticks, and then after that, before the structure is built, he would like knock it down and be very happy about it. And you did talk about letting the child lead himself or herself, but also as parents we should know like when to step in, or we should kind of model and intervene when possible or when the opportunity arises. So I just wonder whether you have any comments about that.
Okay, so from our perspective, like if the child is throwing sticks or breaking sticks, that's actually they're exploring their play. Well, it's a play schema. So they need to throw things to observe, like, oh, this is where it goes in a distance and this is how my hand forces it. So all these behaviors or actions that you are describing is the play work of a child. So even if you were to put Lego pieces, they can break it. So it's the action. I wouldn't worry too much about the breaking, because that's he's exploring his play schemas, and we could step back. Even if we wouldn't I wouldn't want to intervene, because then it will interrupt his play, um, unless of course safety is involved and he's like hurting himself or hurting someone, and then we will intervene. But as far as our forest school practitioner, we would allow it. If we want to use natural materials, probably get the ones that are like the sticks and stuff, that are the ones that are like already on the ground. They're not the live stick, that you don't pluck anything. Of course we don't pluck anything from the plants, so the ones that are ground are already in that sense dead. And so I think it's fine to use that as play materials if they're dead twigs and leaves and sticks. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe your son is advanced for his age. He's already building, you
Yeah.
know, at 3, almost 3. No, not even 3 actually. I think it's fine. The only thing I was like, okay, but if there was another child building something and went over and struck it down, then I think I would intervene, and I would be like, oh, I just explain and work it out between the three of us. Yeah. But I think it's okay. He's like laughing. He's like, ah, ha, 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 ha. This is the best thing ever. Yeah. At home, in the home environment, there's a lot of things you're not allowed to do, right? Like, you try to drag a chair, it's very noisy, the neighbors are downstairs, you're like, oh, shh. And then, like, you close a cupboard too hard and you get scolding. Then you, like, I don't know, turn on the water, bathe for too long, you also, like, waste water. So there's a lot of things you're not allowed to do, like, in an indoor environment. And then I feel like when you're outdoors, as long as it doesn't, like, harm, the plants and the animals and other people, and it's not dangerous to yourself, you're not next to the traffic, I think, like, you should be as free as possible. You go to a tree, you tap it, you run to it, you hug it, like, you throw some stones. Don't leave the place in a mess, of course, but like, do whatever, do whatever is within the law. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Nat and Sabrina. And on that note, we are already almost 15 minutes past the hour, so I think we will end the webinar here. To the audience, thank you for staying on, and please stay in touch with Climate Conversations for webinars and events. Our next webinar is on managing climate anxiety and building climate resilience in children, and we have two psychologists from James Cook University who will be speaking on that topic. So please sign up via the link in the comments section. And with that, thank you so much again, Sabrina and Nat, for your time and for your very insightful sharing. It was very, very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for organizing this.
Thank you for having us.